welcome to the Mastering Social Media for Schools podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Gribble. We are back with another great interview with Michelle Karpinski. She is out of Portage Public Schools in Michigan, and we've got a special topic today. We are going to talk about how they handle social media in their district of about 8,500 students and the powerful changes that have happened because of their consistent storytelling. But we're actually going to dive deep into a process that they went through that's called a communications audit. They actually partnered with NSPRA, which is the National School Public Relations Association, to do a formal communications audit. And you might be freaking out and being like, oh my gosh, I would not want to have an audit. They're going to tell me what I'm not doing well. Well, Michelle really gives some great perspective on how their leadership team and herself approached this communications audit. She's going to share kind of what the process was like, how much time it took, and then talk about some of the key findings that came out and what they were able to do with this. Now, the audit took place in 2023. They're still implementing some of the things, but they were able to do a bunch of quick wins and really make some meaningful changes. And I just love this. When we chatted about this at my social media for schools retreat this past June in Minnesota, I'm like, we really need to tell this story. And so I'm so glad that Michelle got to come on, and I hope this interview really helps. If you are looking for additional help, be like Michelle and come on over to our social media for schools retreat. It's happening again in June of 2026 in beautiful Stillwater, Minnesota. We are really focusing this year not only on just, social media itself, but using AI in your use of communications and social media, and also student storytellers. Usually we can't always hire more people, but we've got students that can do a great job in elevating our storytelling. And so those are two of the big focuses. So we hope that you can join us June 23rd through the 25th in Stillwater, Minnesota. There's information over on our website. We'll link that in the show notes as well. Space is limited. We are nearly full. We limit this to only 125 people from across the country that can come to this event. So if you're thinking about it, you're going to want to jump in. Hopefully we still have some spots left by the time you hear this. And if not, you'll be added to a wait list. But we can't wait to learn and grow. And Michelle and her team are going to be coming back this year, which is awesome. All right. Now, before we get into our interview with Michelle, we're first going to cover our K-12 PR tip. All right, our K-12 PR tip. If you are looking for a way to get help with your social media and you're like, we don't have a formal social media internship program or anything, we recently shared a blog that talked about Horizon Honors School in Arizona, and they actually had a TA position, so a teacher's assistant position. Most of your schools have those jobs open where they go into the classrooms and they help in an assistant type of role. I just want to encourage you, take a look. Do you have something like that in your school or district that you could have somebody coming in once a day or every other day to help you with your storytelling? Obviously, reels are a big thing with video, taking pictures, getting out into the classrooms, and getting your students involved might be the perfect way to really advance your program. She actually has 15 years of experience. And so she shares all of that in a blog that we just recently shared. So I'll link to that in the show notes. You can check that out. But I think that's a great way to get started. Okay, so that's my tip for today. Now let's dive into this awesome interview on communication audits with Michelle. Welcome to the show. Hi,
Thank
Michelle. How are
you.
you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks.
Yeah, we got a couple Midwesterners. We got Wisconsin and Michigan in the house.
Right. Well,
Um,
I'm originally from Wisconsin, so there you go.
all right. So you totally understand my accent.
Oh, absolutely. I can say Economowalk and all the things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's awesome. Well, Michelle, why don't you give a little introduction to, your background, your current role as community relations manager there in Portage?
Yeah, so actually I just am completing my 10th anniversary in school PR. It was kind of a later career move for me, but totally related to the work I'd been doing. So previous to working in school PR, I did a lot of community organization fundraising and public relations and all of that. So it's all related. But after doing several large capital campaigns and raising millions of dollars for different organizations, I was like, I need a change. So this is the school district where my children attended, although I didn't work here when they did, thank goodness. It was kind of one of those places I knew two of my three predecessors, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to follow in those footsteps. So I've been here 10 years and it's been great.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about Portage Public Schools. How big, how many schools, all,
Hmm.
like the how many students?
So we have about 8,500 students. We're kind of a suburb of Kalamazoo, if you will. We have 8 elementaries, 3 middle schools, 3 high schools, 2 traditional high schools, and 1 alternative school. So that is, and we just opened 2 brand new elementary schools last week, or well, when school started. So yeah, we had the ribbon cuttings last week, but yeah.
So are you growing?
No, we're replacing. I mean, we're
Okay.
pretty stable. We do have some growth. So we did, as we planned these new schools, we definitely allowed for some growth. But we've been a pretty stable community for quite a while. When most of our elementary schools were built in the 1950s, the community was growing. So there were several, 4 or 5 schools that went up all within, a 10-year period, and they were all getting quite old and not no air conditioning, no good technology. It's all retrofitted. So we undertook a bond. We actually passed it right before COVID hit, or right after COVID hit. We had done all the planning before COVID hit, and then COVID hit, and then we passed it after. So these are our first 2 schools, and they are beautiful. And we've got one more underway, and we're because of how what COVID did to inflation. Unfortunately, our bond is not covering all of the construction we need to do, so we're going back in November, asking voters to help us finish the job, and that's the slogan we're using. So we have 2
Okay.
more to do after this third one that we're doing.
Okay. That is a lot of work. I can't believe you found time to be on this podcast.
And we have a new superintendent. So yeah, it's been a busy fall, but it's been great and a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. So can you share a little bit about how social media works in your district and how that fits into your position? And are you a solo
No, no.
communications person?
I have 2 staff people. One is so we're right in the admin building right up front. So my assistant and also kind of the, receptionist for the whole district. So she's here. And then I have a community relations coordinator, and she does the majority of the social media work.
Okay.
So she's out in the building. She's, doing stories. She's a former journalist, which is great because she's a trained photographer. Like her major was photography. So we always have beautiful images on our social media and our website. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what channels do you run then for the district?
So we do Facebook, Instagram. We have Aptigee, so we do the live feed and the news feed and all of those things that are associated with that. We made a deliberate decision not to use X,
Hmm.
and we have not explored Snapchat or any of the other
TikTok.
TikTok now. So
Okay.
we just kind of keep it tr traditional, if social media is traditional.
Yeah. Well, those are the two channels I always recommend is Facebook
Hmm.
and Instagram. And sometimes you can spread yourself, way too thin. So
Right.
we'll make sure we have your channels linked in the show notes. Question
Perfect.
on your different schools. Do they
Hmm.
also have their own social media channels, or how does that work?
Yeah, so that's been one of the challenges that I don't think is unique to us, right? There's like a gazillion different rogue social medias. The only time we've really had, so yeah, so our high schools for sure, right? They have their own, they have athletics has their own different clubs, groups, student newspaper, they all have their own because we're such a large district and with 2 different high schools, it would be impossible to try and consolidate all that into the district. Some of our PTOs have their own. We don't control any of those. We monitor those things just to make
Sure.
sure the information is correct and everything. A lot of them work with our like principals and stuff. So yeah, that was one of our challenges was just kind of corralling all of that and trying to figure out, what should we have our hand in and what is like okay for, and just making sure the lines were clear.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big undertaking because people can start new pages all the time. But you have to control what you can control, and you guys are doing a great job of storytelling with your district sites. So that's awesome. Today we're actually, Michelle, going to talk about something really special because we got to talking about this summer at the
hmm
NSPRA seminar and just talking about how you and your district used a communications audit to really get to your communication goals. So, first off, can you just explain what like an NSPRA and there's other organizations that do audits. So, but what is a communications audit?
Sure. So audit always sounds like a scary word, right?
Yeah.
But it's really not. It's really just meant to be, a formal look at everything that you're doing to learn, continuous improvement, right? What you're doing well, what you could do better, what might need to change, what you want to keep doing. So that's really the basis for the NSPRA audit.
Okay.
It's a pretty big undertaking, but it really has given us a solid plan and also some um, outside expertise, if you will, more than 50 miles away kind of rule that really helped us be able to advance our program and what we're doing and how we're doing it. So
And
it's been very valuable.
when did you do the audit?
So we did our audit in 2023. I had been working on our superintendent prior to that, but then we all know what happened, COVID. So after we came back and everything changed, I think, he was much more open to making the investment and really seeing, what we need to do. At that point, we had a WordPress website that just was really hard to navigate and hard to update. And so it was just kind of this information thing. And so we knew we wanted to move in a certain direction. And this kind of gave the data to support, because educators love data, as do
Mhm.
superintendents, to support where we knew we wanted to go. Now, the auditor who came in was very clear. He asked me about our goals and everything, but he's like, I'm not going to make something up just for you to be able to get what you want. And I'm like, that's fair. um, so we really worked hand in hand, and it gave us a great blueprint for being able to really advance what we were wanting to do to improve our communications.
Okay. So some listeners are going to hear this and they might really, like you said, audit is a scary word, and they might be really afraid of somebody from the outside coming in to basically examine the work that you're
hmm
doing. So,
hmm
what really, Michelle, for you, what was your approach to the process?
So we were really transparent with what we were trying to do. It started with a board presentation about what we wanted to do with this audit, what was going to happen. We really emphasized, and as did our auditor, the fact that this is not a punitive process. This is not to make you look bad. It's not to undermine what you're doing. It's really meant to enhance and support what you're doing. And so even though obviously we had some things, right, that we could improve, um, and a lot of them we knew about. Some of them were, like new discoveries, which is great. And so then it ended with myself and the auditor doing a presentation to our school board. And so it just was the attitude that we had going into it to say, we know we're going to take a tough look at ourselves, right? We do that all the time with a lot of our things, with our, academics or data or school, test scores, all those kind of things. Why would communications be any different? And our board was very supportive of that. And they were very pleased that, we were kind of putting the good with with the room for improvement out there to both them and the community. So.
Yeah. I can imagine, I mean, there's some things that are that you might be struggling with. I think the big thing, and you've been at this 10 years. I've been in
Mhm.
school social media world, really
Right.
focused on that for the last 12 years. Things have changed so much. Expectations from our community, from our parents, even from our staff and our students have changed so much. What a gift, really, to really take a
Mhm.
look at, okay, what are some things we need to improve? And then I can also imagine the whole process really helped maybe prioritize
Mhm.
things. Is that
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the audit came back with, I think we ended up with like 9, uh, recommended, recommendations and action steps under each of those recommendations. So it's really rolled out like kind of like a strategic plan, right? Um, and not all of them, I want to make the point, not all of them were directly communications related. Some of
Okay.
them were like how the board communicates with the community, how the superintendent communicates, how our curriculum department communicates with the community. So there were other things that were implemented as a result of this kind of outside of the communications department because it really took a holistic look at the whole communications for the entire district. It wasn't solely focused, obviously we were the main focus, but not solely focused on just what the community relations department was doing.
Okay. So now can you just take me and break down? I mean, you talked a little bit about the presentation initially, the presentation at the end, but
Mhm.
what was the process like? How long, how much time did it take? How much was the auditor spending with each individual,
Mhm.
people, like maybe interviewing and reviewing? What was
Mhm.
that like?
Yeah, so we started with, obviously, NSPRA assigned us an auditor, and there's a whole bunch of people, around the country that do this. They tried to match us up with an auditor who had experience with districts our size. He had experience in the Midwest, those kinds of things to kind of understand, the basic community and what you're dealing with, very different here than Texas or whatever. Um, and so he sent there was a whole document that came with here's I want to know all your social media handles, whether they're yours or they're, so that's where we're trying to track down all these different Instagram accounts and Facebook accounts and, you know, uh, just a myriad of questions that we had to answer. And he wanted to see our website. And, so, I mean, we had this huge Google Doc that we just kept putting links in and documents and all of that, anything you could possibly think of, standard letters, our logos, our, branding guide, pretty much anything you could think of that had to do with communications in the district. So that all got uploaded, and he, audited that, and then took a look at things, and then he actually came to Portage and we did a whole series of focus groups with different constituency groups, teachers, parents, community. I think we had the Rotary Club giving him some feedback. And so all of those different groups. And then he met with some of us, he met with communications, he met with superintendent, various people on the exec team and stuff. And then took all that information and went back home and worked on his report. And so what was the result was this big report, right? It's
Yeah.
um and it's great. And he did a SWOT analysis, all the things that you would want to know, key findings, observations. And then they also benchmarked it against the NSPRA rubrics of practice.
Okay.
So they kind of measured us against ourselves, but also measured us against kind of those standards. And there was a number associated with that and stuff. So that was kind of interesting because we'd never really took that into consideration as part of our communications plan. I didn't even really know, what it was, how it existed, that kind of thing. So that's kind of helpful as well to be able to, kind of have that benchmark and maybe at some point down the road we'll look at those benchmarks again and see how we're doing against those.
That's awesome. So about how much time did that take from that initial request for all the information you had to put in and
Yeah.
then
I want to
reviewing?
say it was a couple of months. 2,
Okay.
3 months that, because again, that's not all we were doing, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot going on then. And so we would, work on things as we could. We tried to make it a big priority because we didn't want it to drag out. It went as fast as we could make it happen. He was there ready to do the work. And, as soon as we could meet the requests and get the focus group scheduled and all those things, then it just kind of kept rolling along.
Okay.
Then I would say he probably worked on the report for maybe another month, or so to get it all in shape. It ran through some folks at NSPRA as well, so other eyes were on it, and that kind of thing. So we ended up with a really comprehensive document that was really a good roadmap for the steps that we should take.
Yeah. So you said you had kind of 9 key findings.
Hmm.
Some of those I'm sure that you kind of were aware of, and you're like,
Sure.
okay, that's just how, but was there one or two items that you were like, whoa, that was kind of like I didn't even think of that, that you're able to take action on to make changes? Did you have anything like that?
Yeah, I'll say one of them that was kind of interesting that's been really successful was one of those that didn't really have much to do with the communication department at all. So he got feedback from a lot of our principals that they were getting a lot of emails from the district office with, you got to do this, and this is what we're starting here, and this is what we're doing there. And they couldn't keep track of them. They said it was just really hard to process and keep up with all the emails they were getting from this curriculum director and this elementary director and the secondary director, all of it. So that department really took it to heart, and they actually developed a weekly kind of running. I think they do it in a Google Slides kind of thing where they compile everything for the week that, principals and administrators need to know. They put all the links in and everything. They send it out. Our assistant superintendent of instruction sends it out to all the principals and administrators every week, and everything's in one place now. And it's ongoing. So if somebody can look back by the date, by the week, so they could go back to August 5th or whatever and take a look at what was, if there were links in there they needed and stuff. So that has really streamlined what I'd call the internal communication, which was one of the recommendations. And has been very, very successful and has really had a great benefit for the organization.
So, yeah, a lot of times we think about external communication, but
Hmm.
it's actually internal
Hmm.
communication as well.
Hmm.
Does the audit include not only, kind of like, hey, this needs help, you need to work on this. Does it also include some of those, hey, here's some things that other schools do that might be able to, um, you know, alleviate that, or doesn't it really go into that?
Well, not per se. I mean, again, they're
Okay.
going back to best practices. And so those recommendations definitely have action steps. And so what we did after the audit was all done, I mean, they did word clouds, all this stuff, Um, when we went through it, then after it was kind of all done, and we broke it apart by recommendation and each action step. And we actually made a checklist, so every few months or whatever, we go back and be like, yep, we got this done, we got this done, Um, Kayla really likes checklists, and so do I. So we're like, well, this is the best way to do it. We're going to turn this into a big old checklist. And knowing that some things are going to happen right away, some things might take 2 years. One of the things they included in their recommendations were a little thing called quick wins. So kind of that low-hanging fruit that you could kind of implement quickly right away and get some traction. So we did some of those. And so we've just been kind of plugging along with that. I would say the other major thing that it helped with was our website and direct communication. So through this process, we went with Aptigee. And so that ability to translate, to send things out translatable, so
Mhm.
our different community members can actually, read it and understand it, not necessarily have to rely on their students or children to interpret for them, has been huge. Has been a big win. Just the quality of the website, the information, and the speed with which we can share those important communications. So, to be able to text and voicemail, and we also have the app so we can do a push notification, has really been a game changer because prior to that, we were just emailing. So, The example I always used is that one day we had a car accident on the road in front of one of our elementary schools. So traffic was backing up, right? As buses were, it was nobody's fault. It was just an accident. Like didn't even involve parents. It was just a random accident, but it was just in a bad spot at a bad time during
Right.
dismissal, right? And we had to email parents about that. And now I'm like, who's sitting in their car looking at their email, right? So now we can push that out as a text. We can isolate the different buildings and different, to just say, hey, if traffic's backed up, be aware there was an accident, everybody's fine. It's just going to take a little extra longer during dismissal today. So they know what to expect. So that's been kind of one example, but it served so many purposes. Another thing we always were grappling with was because we have a lot of students that go off campus, high school students that go off campus for various programs, right? And the one thing we could never figure out is like, if we have a lockup while they're gone and they're on their way back, how are we going to let them know? Right? So now we've been able to, we send a Google form out to all the families each semester saying, do you want your child to be on this list so that they can get, notifications if they're off campus? We've built lists within Aptigee to do that. We update it every semester, and fortunately, we've never had to use it, but it's there in case we do. So,
Right. And I can imagine, I mean, with a third party, coming in, and then with data to support it, especially with interviews with staff members, with parents, maybe with community members,
mhm.
with principals, that all helps put enough information in front of a school board to make a decision like, yes, we do need to invest in this type of platform or whatever, versus just trying to continue to limp by, right?
Yeah, which is interesting. Like we're a little unique in how our board governs, and so we use policy governance. So they wouldn't necessarily be involved in the decision to actually do it or not. That was on the
Okay.
superintendent. But I've
Okay.
been working on them for a long time for, getting a new website out there. And, it's an expense, it's an investment. Well, we've got this one we're doing for free through our technology department. Do we really want to do this? And so that was the piece that was very helpful in helping to educate him about the importance of social media, of the communication in a new way, of being able to translate, of being able to get it out there quickly. So that really turned the corner in terms of saying, yeah, we should really move forward with a new website. The board we kept in the loop just because they're our board and we want them to know what's going on, and they were pleased with what we were doing. The other thing that it led to was a rebrand for our district.
Mm.
So we just launched that this summer. And so we've got a new tagline, we've got a new logo. We made these cool little things for our new staff to hold up when we take their pictures, and we've got new stickers. So we've been having a lot of fun with it, and we created a brand guide. And we've been taking them out to all the buildings so they know how to use the logo and what fonts and colors and all of that. So that was another one of the recommendations, a pretty big one that was in here. And we had created a 100th anniversary logo for our 100th anniversary, but that was getting to be like 4 years ago. So it was time anyway. But yeah, so it's just been so helpful, so fun, and really has elevated, where we've gone with our communications and our district image. Because
Yeah.
we're very, proud of our district and the education we, provide to the students in our district. My kids got a great education here, but we just didn't quite look like it, and now we do.
Yeah. So you held up your little signs, and
Oh
if you're
yeah.
not watching online,
Oh
your
right.
your
Sorry.
new tagline
Oh,
is every student, every future.
future. Yep.
And so did that come out of the audit or after they kind of recommended maybe a rebrand or, a new slogan, then did you go to work to try to develop that?
Yeah, so they recommended, what the audit recommended was that their conclusion is we didn't have a strong identity of who we are.
Okay.
We're an IB district, we've got this, we've got great um, theater programs, we've got great band programs, we've got all these great things, but there was no like real identity that was tangible. So their recommendation was that we go through a process to rebrand, and so not just rebrand like logo and pretty colors, but really dig into what does it mean to be Portage Public Schools. So that we actually did with a different consultant, and it's somebody that we've worked with for a long time, and we went through that process using the data from the audit, but then also other surveys and stuff that we had used.
Okay.
Again, some more focus. We had all this data already. So it was really, it was just an exercise of how do we put it all together to come out with, what is our brand going to mean? What does it look like? Who are Portage Public Schools? So this is what we worked through and ended up with. So we came back, ultimately it comes down to the logo, right? You do all the other things and then it's like, now what is this going to look like?
Yeah.
We came back with several different ones, and that was something that the board needed to approve. Our logo, district logos, and tagline. We did not change our mission. We modified our vision slightly. It was just a rewording, really. Same intention, same message, but just a little more concise. So all of those things, were presented and passed by the board.
Oh,
And like I said, we launched it all this summer. So.
okay. Yeah, and we're going to have links to your website and links to your social channels, so everybody's going to be able to check that out. If somebody's thinking like, hey, maybe an audit would be the next step for us,
Mhm.
but a little bit scared to ask, I know it's an investment.
Yeah.
What recommendations would you have if somebody's listening and says, I think we should do this?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to be brave, right? Because it is a little scary. It's like, and even my superintendent was like, well, superintendent at the time was like, well, some of those things didn't come back very good. And I'm like, yeah, I know that was kind of the point. Right. We want to know like what we can do better, So that was even kind of eye-opening to him in a way. Because I think, it's always you always tend to want to focus on what you're doing well. And so it
Right.
does take a little bit of bravery to kind of say, okay, what aren't we doing well? What could we be doing better? And certainly it'll depend on your board and everything and how they operate. Ours, like I said, we do policy governance, so they don't really get too involved in that day-to-day operation stuff. But that could be a factor too to consider. But I would say talking about it, showing some examples, having the folks from NSPRA, they're happy to talk to you about it and everything. And it is a really spelled out, good process. And so, yeah, if you could pull it off, I highly recommend it because for us, it was a complete game changer.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to hear this, and I think it's just a timely conversation because I've heard it from multiple people
Mm-hmm.
how much has really impacted the work that they're able to do, and that's what it's all about. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
as we wrap up, Michelle, before we get just ways to stay connected to you, I always like to end with the best social media tip. So, what would you say
Mm-hmm.
is your best social media tip?
Well, I liked the little sticker we had. Shoot, I had it here now. I've lost it and all my shuffling along. The little sticker that's like posted is better than perfect,
Yeah, I got
but
that right here.
yeah, that one. I had it. I grabbed it and then it got messed up with my papers here. But that's the one. Definitely do it often. We post, like I said, it really changed the whole nature of Kayla's job in terms of, we redid some assignment so she could have more time to be out there and be in the buildings. And now she's getting into reels and all of those things that we just kind of were like, well, that's okay. But as you come to realize that our parents, especially our parents of our youngest students, they're the social media generation now.
Right.
So you really need to meet them where they are, and they love it. We always have to be careful about the students and making sure that they're able to be photographed and be put out in the public. But, we've even had parents kind of change their mind about it because they're like so excited to see their student, doing cool things. So Kayla's out at least, 50, 60% of her time, and we're posting several times a day on top of, the kind of the nuts and bolts stuff we're doing for our bond and that kind of, informational campaign and that kind of thing, but really just connecting with all the good things. Because that was something we heard from a lot of our teachers was like, we don't get the good news out enough.
Mhm.
And so because of the way Apogee is set up, we can also post not only on the district website and news feed and that kind of thing, but we have access to all the buildings.
Okay.
So we can plop something in on one of the buildings if, she's doing social media. So we try to overlap, right? So if we post it on social media, we'll also put it on the news feed, the live feed, whatever is appropriate to do, because we know people, there's so many options for communication channels, right? So
Yeah.
we try to hit as many of those as we can, knowing if somebody sees it twice, all the better, right?
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
sinks in a little better.
And there's just so much competition to even show up in someone's
Hmm.
news feed
Yeah.
that it's just like you can put the same picture on Facebook and Instagram and on a live feed and maybe in a newsletter. And
Hmm. Yep.
it deserves to be celebrated. And people can pretty quickly swipe by if they think they've already seen it. So
Right, right. So, yeah, so that's been exciting. And, I think the result has been over time a lot more community engagement. So
yeah.
when we opened our the ribbon cutting we had last week for one of our new elementary schools, we estimated we had almost 400 people there
Wow.
of a school of 450 students. And they had already had their building open house for their families. So it was super exciting. And I couldn't give you the hard data, but I gotta believe it's because of our social media. We recently hit 10,000 followers on
Hmm.
Facebook. So it's way beyond, it's gotten way beyond just our school community. And we also have started really cross-sharing with our city. They just happen to be kind of down the road from us. And so
Okay.
they've hired a new social media manager. So their social media manager and Caleb have been partnering up to cross-promote things. And so it's been really exciting. And, she's got the photography, he's got the video. So they're exchanging a lot of information. And so it's really gathering a lot of good steam. And we have seen, you know, of course, you're always going to get the cranky comments, right? But we've seen
Yeah.
fewer of them, I have to say. And
Yeah.
again, I couldn't give you the exact numbers, but it's just kind of a sense of, where we are and what we're doing. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love that partnership with the city.
yeah.
And that can be really powerful. So as we wrap up, if somebody wanted to reach out, ask about the rebrand, ask about the audit process, Michelle, what's the best way to stay connected to you?
Probably the best way is to email me. So
Okay.
for various reasons, my personal social media is really private and locked down.
Yeah.
Certainly they could reach out through the district social media, but probably an email or phone call or whatever certainly, would be something I would get an answer.
Okay.
It seems a little old school, but it's
Yeah. And
also,
you got a lot on your plate too. So it's M as in Michelle,
yeah,
Karpinski at portageps.org. So
yep, that's correct.
portagepublicschools.org.
Right.
And that'll be in the show notes as well. So you can definitely reach out to Michelle to stay connected, ask questions, say good job, whatever you want to do. Michelle, thank you so much for taking time today to chat.
Absolutely. It's been super fun.
This
Said
was your
my
first
very first podcast.
yeah, first podcast. What do you think?
It's fun. I
Yeah,
like it. I got my new microphone here and my headphones, and we're
I
ready to
know.
go.
You are official. Now you can launch a podcast for your own school, right? Like you've got the
Maybe.
no, you focus on what you need to, but you
Hmm.
did a great job and I'll
Thanks.
continue we'll want to watch your pages. Recommend everybody to check out what they're doing. And if you can take one or two tips and if you end up jumping into an audit, awesome. Michelle's there to answer any questions. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much,
Yeah, you're
Michelle, and
welcome.
everybody for listening in. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another great interview, some helpful tips, and until then, keep telling those stories. Bye bye.
Bye.